Hello and welcome to LSAT Logic Applied. I'm your host, Andrew Leahy, an assistant teaching professor of law at Drexel Klein School of Law. This is a short format podcast where I take the tools from LSAT logical reasoning, assumptions, flaws, causation, strength, and weaken, and apply them to real-world claims in the news, politics, and advertising. For those that don't know, the LSAT is the law school admission test, a standardized exam designed to assess logical reasoning, analytical thinking, and reading comprehension for law school applicants. It's a high-stakes test with a unique focus on how arguments work and how they fall apart. The LSAT is owned and administered by the Law School Admission Council, or LSAC. I don't claim any affiliation or ownership. I'm just here to teach the logic. You don't need to be studying for the LSAT to follow along. The point here is to learn how to spot weak reasoning in everyday life, the same kind of reasoning that LSAT trains you to attack under time pressure. Today's episode is about a deceptively powerful LSAT skill, identifying a necessary assumption, the unstated idea an argument must rely on to work at all. The story we're looking at today isn't politics or policy. It's a corporate press release from Zaxbys. In January of 2026, Zaxbys announced the return of two menu items, Southern Fried Shrimp and Giant Chicken Quesadillas. Right out of the gate, the press release frames this as a response to consumer demand. The headline emphasizes a, quote, return of fan-favorite menu innovations, and the at-a-glance summary says the items are, quote, back by popular demand. Later, a senior executive makes the logic even more explicit. According to Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer Patrick Schwing, our guests have told us loud and clear. Southern Fried Shrimp and our Giant Chicken Quesadillas are two menu items they crave. We're bringing both back to give them exactly what they want. In addition to sounding vaguely like a threat, that's the key sentence, because it's where the argument lives. This isn't just an announcement, it's a justification, and that makes it a perfect LSAT example. So let's break this down LSAT style. First, what is Zaxby's trying to prove? The core conclusion is something like this. Bringing back Southern Fried Shrimp and Giant Quesadillas is a good decision that will satisfy customers. That's the claim doing the work. Now let's look at the premises, the support the press release offers. 1, these items are described as fan-favorite menu innovations. 2, they are back by popular demand. 3, Zaxby's says guests have told us loud and clear that they crave these items. And 4, the items have returned multiple years in a row, suggesting past success. Put together, the reasoning looks like this. Customers liked these items before. Customers say they want them again. Therefore, reintroducing them will succeed and make customers happy. That's a classic argument, and on the LSAT, that means one thing. There's an assumption hiding underneath it. So let's look at this through an LSAT lens. This is a necessary assumption question. On the LSAT, it would sound like this. Which of the following is an assumption required by the argument? A necessary assumption is something the argument must believe, even if it never says it out loud. Here, Zaxby's never explicitly states the assumption, but without it, the argument collapses. The assumption is something like, customer preferences have not materially changed since the items were last offered. Why does the argument need that? Because if customer tastes have changed, if people are bored of these items or want healthier options or are tired of limited time repeats, then past popularity tells us nothing at all about current demand. The press release treats past craving as proof of present craving, in other words. That only works if we assume continuity, and that assumption is never stated, but it's absolutely required. This is where LSAT logic gets sharp. Notice what Zaxby's does not give us. They don't give us survey data. They don't give us a time frame for when customers express these preferences. They don't give us any evidence that, quote, craving translates into current purchasing behavior. Instead, the argument relies on a bridge it never builds explicitly. On the LSAT, a correct necessary assumption answer is not flashy. It often sounds boring. It often feels obvious after you see it, but if you negate it, the argument falls apart. If it turns out customer preferences have changed, the justification for bringing these items back evaporates. And that's how you know you found a necessary assumption. And this is why necessary assumptions are such a powerful LSAT skill. Arguments in the real world, especially marketing and PR, rarely spell out what they're relying on. They present conclusions as common sense and let assumptions do the heavy lifting invisibly. The LSAT trains you to ask a disciplined question. What must be true for this argument to work at all? Once you start asking that question, press releases, ads, and political messaging all start to look very different. And with that, I thank you for listening to LSAT Logic Applied. If you enjoyed this breakdown, subscribe for more short episodes where we apply clean logic to messy real-world claims. See you next time.